All right, everybody, welcome to today's episode where we are talking about what to do when motherhood feels lonely. But before we get into that, I have a story to tell you guys and a couple of reminders to tell you. So if you're listening to this on the podcast, first of all, thank you. Second of all, this is the first day that I am putting an official intro piece to the podcast where I recorded a special little intro kind of about my vision and hope for the podcast and this entire community. I put music to it. I did it by myself. One of the things that I really love about this community so much is that I create it right along with you guys. And I put it in my intro. If you didn't fast forward through it, I hope that you didn't. I hope that you listened to it. I tell you that, yes, I teach you guys how to declutter, but I want it to be so much more. I want this to feel like a friendship. I want you to feel like I'm showing up for you. You're doing this with me. That's why I record all of the episodes in real time here live on Facebook and Instagram so that we can have a conversation and you guys can be a part of it. So I recorded my intro. I would love to hear what you think about it. I feel like it's going to be one of those things. Like I look back to a year ago on my first draft of like my blogs and they were really ugly. They were really horrible. I mean, maybe I won't look back on it. Maybe I'll look back on it and be like, that was really good. But who knows? Okay. Who knows? I don't know what I'm doing, guys. And that's the beauty of it, right? We just do it together. It doesn't have to be perfect. So there's that. And I just want to tell you guys, thank you for listening because this is like honestly, like my dream job. Okay. I get to show up. I get to hang out with you guys. I get to talk with you. I get to teach you things that I hope make your life easier and more enjoyable and your mom life something that you're embracing and feeling at peace with instead of just like overwhelmed and burdened and like something that's a drag. Okay. So listen to the intro, give me your honest feedback, and just thank you for listening. So first reminder, Monday starts the Clutter-Free Motherhood Challenge, which is Tuesday. Monday is Memorial Day. Tuesday, May 28th, 2019, we are starting the Clutter-Free Motherhood Challenge. It's a 4-day decluttering challenge. I'm super excited to walk you guys through this challenge to help you get really honest about the reasons that you have your clutter, kind of understanding your approach to your clutter so that you can finally let it go and give you some really good action steps and decluttering projects to get that going. Okay, so that starts on Tuesday. If you want to do it with us, I'm going to be sending it out via email because it's easier to find than buried in a Facebook group or on Instagram. It's bit.ly/clutter-free motherhood. I'll put it in the description and in the comments for you guys to get into it. And next week, what Lindsay is talking about is the Clutter Chronicles, which is the podcast series where I am highlighting the stories of moms who have come into the Motherhood Simplified community, have been more than willing to not only listen to me, which is like a huge honor. Like, honestly, guys, like it's great if you want to listen to me, but that's not what fuels me. That's not what makes me excited. What makes me excited is when you take it and you run with it. So Jessica, I hope somebody can answer that question for you in the comments. If not, I'll get to it after the episode. She says, where do you even find podcasts? I'll help you. Or somebody in the comments will help you. But I don't show up and make these episodes for you guys just to be like, I made a podcast episode and it was a lot of fun. Like I make these episodes so that the moms who want to hear it and need help making these changes will go out and make the changes. So that's what next week, and actually it's going to be about 2 weeks because I had so much interest, is going to be about, is highlighting these moms who've come in, have listened to the podcast, read the blogs, done the challenges, and then got into a course with me, a decluttering course with me, and just had a ton of success and benefits. And my hope is that you hear their stories and you get inspired and you realize that it's not exclusive to like one person. It's a whole long line of people now, moms now, who have decluttered and found relief in it, okay? Found relief in so many different ways, have had so many different kinds of obstacles and hurdles and excuses to jump through. And just like you, just a mom like you. And I hope that you get really motivated and inspired to take action from it. Yeah. Or Lindsay says, or all of the courses. Lindsay's in all of the courses. She has all of them and she's done them. And I'm really excited to get to highlight them and just show you guys that this works. That's kind of the whole point of this podcast. And just to let you guys know that you're not alone. Okay. One of the things that I really, really, truly love the most about this podcast, and I put it in the intro, is that it feels like we're hanging out together. We're doing this together. Okay. It's 2019. No, we're not at each other's houses, but you're watching me in my house and you're probably sitting at your house or in your car or at your work. And it's like, we're doing it together. Okay. So that's enough about that. I'm really excited about this. But today's episode is all about loneliness in motherhood. Okay. Loneliness in motherhood, when it hits and what to do about it. Okay. So when we talk in this group, I like to come at you from a pretty practical approach. Like, I really believe that a lot of our struggles that we have, we can break down into really practical bite-sized pieces and be like, oh, it's really not this big of a deal. It's just these little things, and understanding it makes it a little bit easier. So that's what we're going to talk. That's where we're going to start. We're going to start with what loneliness really is. So first of all, tons of you guys have shared that at some point in your motherhood, you feel lonely. Okay. You feel lonely. And I want to redefine loneliness for you. Okay. And keep in mind that this is a pretty personal episode. So maybe you relate to a lot of this. Maybe you won't. That's okay. Hopefully you relate to at least some of it. But for me, loneliness isn't this thing that people do to me. It's not like people ignore me and then I feel lonely. Like, loneliness is just a disconnection. It's just a disconnection. It's a really strong feeling of disconnect. And disconnection from yourself, disconnection from your spouse, disconnection from your kids, your friends, your life. Like, loneliness is just disconnection. Okay. And I want to give you that different definition because it makes it a little bit easier to approach and figure out a solution. If you know that loneliness is just a disconnection, you know that the solution is to figure out a way to connect with yourself, your family, your friends, and whatever else is important to you. Okay, so loneliness is just a disconnection. And I say that like it's just a disconnection, but that's really what it is at the core. It's a disconnection. And it's something that I felt almost immediately with my first daughter. Okay, my daughter now is turning 10 in a few days. And I remember her being just a couple weeks or months old. I know it was within the first year of feeling really disconnected from her. And I didn't know why. And you guys know kind of the story. Like, I jumped right in and was like, I need therapy. Like, this isn't normal. I shouldn't be feeling so disconnected from her. But it made me feel very lonely because it's kind of an oxymoron in motherhood where we're surrounded by people all the time. We're surrounded by our kids and our spouse and our coworkers and our friends or the extended family or whoever's in our life, but you can still feel really lonely because you're disconnected from them. So figuring out the root of your disconnect is the most important. So I'm going to tell you guys about my loneliest times, or I guess it was my loneliest time in motherhood. And it was actually when I was living in Alaska, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because here's why. I was born and raised in Alaska. I knew pretty much everybody. Danielle, I saw Danielle was on here. Danielle is in the same town that I was at. Everybody knows everybody, or, everybody knows somebody who is related to or knows somebody. I spent literally my entire life there. I never left, but I was super freaking lonely because I was a new mom. Okay. And I'm going to talk to you guys about, being in different seasons, and some seasons of motherhood are by nature more isolating and more lonely and how to deal with that. But I was a new mom. I had like this wicked combination recipe for loneliness, like extreme loneliness. I was very young. Okay. I had my first daughter when I barely turned 19. I had just turned 19 when I had her. I was working full time. I was going to school full time. My husband worked like 50 to 60 hour weeks with about a 45 minute to an hour commute one way. So my husband was gone all the time. I was completely overwhelmed by my super cluttered home, okay, which is something that we talk about a lot. I'll give a little clutter plug here in a minute. And social media wasn't really a thing. And I'm going to talk to you guys about the double-edged sword of social media too. But that was not only that, and another thing that you guys mentioned too that you guys struggled with is like the age gap between you and your spouse. Like my husband and I have a pretty big age gap too, like 6 years. So we've been in kind of like different stages of our lives, our entire relationship. And it does make it a little bit tricky to find friends who are in the same season of life as you when you have kids so young and when you are going to school full time and you are working full time. Like it was very lonely. Despite me being surrounded by people that I had grown up with my whole life, despite me having my family, my entire family, like both sides of our families, my husband and I actually lived in a house right next door to his parents. Okay. All of my in-laws were within a 15-minute drive from us, all of the cousins, all of the aunts and uncles. My parents were within an hour, but I was really freaking lonely. Okay, it didn't make any sense, but a big part of why I feel like I was so lonely is because my life was so overwhelming. A big, huge part of that was my clutter. A big, huge part of it was just the season of life I was in, having 2 kids, 2 kids working full time and in school full time. Like that's a lot. And it just was what it was. Like that was my most lonely time. And then, okay. So yeah, as Danielle says, so relatable, 10 years between my husband and I. And it was just really hard. It was really hard. It was really lonely and it made me very disconnected for all of those reasons. And just a quick clutter plug real quick. So I'm going to talk about the rest of it. Your clutter is very isolating. It's very consuming of your time. I will do that. Or good idea, Sarah. It's very consuming of your time and your energy. And it makes you disconnected from the people in your home. It makes you disconnected from your friends outside of the home because you don't have time for them. You have too many things to do. You have too many things to clean and organize, and you're never caught up. So your clutter, I believe personally, is 100% a huge cause of your reason for loneliness and isolation. Okay, so this episode is not entirely about clutter, but I will tell you that once we ditched all of our clutter and moved to Florida, okay, Alaska to Florida, I had no family. I had no friends, no family, no friends. We shared one car, so I didn't even have a way to get around places and go meet people for like the first, I think it was like 5 months that we were there. I didn't have a way to get around and meet people. We moved to a little town in Florida where all of the kids in the neighborhood spoke Spanish. So we literally had a language barrier with the kids that we were able to access. Okay, those kids didn't speak English. I couldn't communicate with the parents. Like it was on paper, very isolating. And I knew nobody, literally nobody, 4,500 miles away from everybody and everything I had ever known. The time zones were different. So coordinating phone calls was even hard because we were like 3 or 4 hours, I think 4 hours ahead of our Alaska friends. So that was hard. It made us very disconnected, but I never once felt lonely in Florida. I never once felt lonely in Florida. And I think it was a combination of a few things. Number one, I had no clutter distracting me. Okay, one of the things that I'm going to talk to you about is like knowing who to lean into. But because I had no distractions inside of my home, I had no choice but to lean into my husband and my kids. Okay. And what I mean by lean into them is like spend my time with them. And when I say spend my time with them, I don't mean just being under the same roof as them, because that's what we did when we lived in our cluttered home. We were always under the same roof together, but we weren't present with each other. We weren't, or it was me. Okay. I wasn't connected with my kids. I wasn't present with them. I wasn't able to be with them. But all of a sudden, when we got to Florida and I didn't have all of that pointless stuff consuming my time and my energy, and just bringing me down all the time, I was able to connect with my kids, and that alleviated my loneliness. When my husband came home from work, I was able to connect with him and be there with him, and that alleviated my loneliness. And like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about like who to lean into and when to lean into them. But I really do think that that was one of the biggest missing pieces for me in Alaska, was that my time with them, I wasn't spending connected with them. My feelings of loneliness were happening because I was so disconnected, because I was so distracted by the messes, by the laundry, by the dishes, so frustrated, angry, irritated, burnt out by the crap in my space, literally consuming my life. Like, that's how powerful your clutter is, and that's how lonely it can make you feel. Okay. There's a lot of other things that we're going to talk about. So it's not just your clutter. Okay. But that is a huge, huge part of it. And I got to see firsthand the dramatic difference in how it made me able to connect with my most immediate family, which are the most important people to me ever. Right. So that was my experience with it. That's my little clutter plug. And we're going to talk about the rest of it, the rest of the dynamics and life situations that happen to make you feel kind of lonely sometimes. So the first thing that I want to talk to you about is knowing the season of life that you're in. Okay. So having a baby, being pregnant, having a baby is probably one of the most difficult and physically isolating seasons of your life. And by default, you're going to be a little bit more lonely during that, because you are spending all of your time caring for this newborn. You know, you can't necessarily go places and do things like you usually do because the baby is so small. The baby's got to nap. You don't want the baby to get sick. You don't want to take the baby into loud, crowded spaces. You know, you're tired, you're physically exhausted, and babies just can't really go everywhere. Like it's just a season of life that is a little bit more isolating. And I want to let you guys know a little secret about why I started this group. Okay. So, and it has to do with this. So I had my first two when I was 19 and then 21. It was very demanding for a lot of different reasons. Like I said, full-time work, full-time college, 2 babies, back to back in 2 years, a husband who worked all the time, being young ourselves and just trying to get ourselves established and trying to stay alive, to be honest. And we waited a while to have another baby because I was like, oh my God, like, I don't know if we'll survive another one. Like, that was crazy. That was so much. And so we waited and we had Kaylee, and I had experience under my belt. Okay. There's like a 6.5 year difference between Kaylee and Derek. I had experience under my belt. I knew what to expect. I knew that pregnancy was going to make me slow down as far as work, and I'm very physically fit and active. I knew that pregnancy was going to slow me down in that way. I was okay with it. I knew it was going to be short term. I knew that after I had her, I was going to be on lockdown because I breastfeed and I had a chance to work from home. And so I just kind of like braced myself and was like, I know what to expect. I know this is going to be pretty isolating just by nature. That doesn't mean I'm alone. It doesn't mean that I need to feel lonely. So I joined some mom groups. And then some of you guys know this story of why I started this blog in the first place, but she was about 3 months old. And I was like, this, like, I'm not overwhelmed by laundry, dishes, toys, like all of these other moms who had babies at the same time as me. Like, I should start a blog. Like, I should start a group, like a support group, so that I feel like I have something else going on, so that I'm making connections with other moms that makes me feel good, that makes me feel like I'm serving them and helping them in some way. And I'll be completely honest, guys, I had some selfish reasons for starting this group and this blog because I knew that I had a little tiny baby. And I knew that that first year is very isolating. And I have tendencies to feel lonely during that time because I feel disconnected from the outside world. Okay, so I knew by that point how to connect with the people inside of my house. But I also knew that I thrive on being connected with people outside of my house and outside of my family. So I started this up. I started this up with a little bit of selfish intentions to, you know, give me a way to connect with others, but also connect with others in a way that I thought would help them. And here we are, you know, a year later. It worked. It worked. It kept me sane. It made me feel connected during that first year of postpartum. It made me feel sane. It made me feel like I had friends. Okay. And just knowing that season. And I think it was easy for me to do that because we got a taste of what the other seasons of parenthood look like. Okay, so like I said, my son was 6.5. My youngest son was 6.5 when we had Kaylee. And by that point, my husband and I, we actually went on a vacation while I was pregnant, just him and I, because we knew pretty soon coming up, we were going to be in another demanding season of parenthood that's pretty isolating and can feel pretty lonely. And that's kind of what keeps me going and has kept me going with Kaylee, is like knowing that this is a short season. This is a short, very demanding season where I don't get to have a social life like I would want to. Like, I don't get to go out on date nights with just my husband like I want to, but that's okay because it's going to be over before I know it. And then I'm going to miss it, right? Like, I will miss it. So just knowing your season, okay, knowing your season that you're in and figuring out ways in the moment to help you feel connected to whoever it is that you need to be connected with at the time. Okay, so that brings me to my next point, is that you've got to know yourself. Okay, you have to know yourself, and you have to know what makes you feel connected to other people. Okay, so I am a weird, a weird combination of like introverted and extroverted, but I know what fills me up. Okay, so I'm probably a pretty even 50-50 mix. Like, one of my favorite ways to connect with people, and this goes to the love languages things. If you don't know about love languages, like, I don't know where you've been, but learn about love languages, because mine are, Jessica says, unless you keep having babies, I can see the light. Yeah, I know, Jessica, exactly. Back to back babies is hard. Janelle says, I'm thankful for groups like this and my due date group to connect me with others. Exactly. And I'm going to talk about kind of the double-edged sword of social media too, but you have to know yourself. So I'm a 50-50 mix of like introvert and extrovert. My love languages they're pretty much tied: quality time and acts of service, which means that in order for me to feel connected to people, not just my husband, but like people in general, I thrive on having face-to-face conversations with them, which is probably why I get so lit up to talk to you guys in this way every day. Okay. Face-to-face conversations with people, experiences with people, like going places. Like, that's one of the introvert like conundrums, is that I actually thrive off of going to big events and going to things out in the community. Like, I thrive on that, having experiences with people and having really good conversations with people. And then acts of service, which means that I like I like to help people. Okay, so maybe you guys can kind of understand why I love this podcast and live video platform so much, is because it combines my two favorites: my quality time conversations and then serving you guys. Okay, so I love to serve people. I love to help people. I love to give them value. And I love it when people do the same things for me. Okay. So know what fills you up. And the reason that you need to know what fills you up is because as moms, we have limited time, right? We have limited time, which means we need to make the most of it and do what's going to be most impactful for us. So when I start to feel things like loneliness and disconnection, I will make time for those things that fill me up the most. So if Savannah watches this replay, she was my Idaho friend in that first year of postpartum motherhood. I would schedule days where she would come over to my house or I would go over to her house. And I do this actually with Jasmine Marshall in this group too, if she watches this or listens to this replay. Schedule days where I go over to her house or she comes over to my house, the kids play, we drink coffee with no agenda and talk about whatever comes up. Okay. Usually it gets kind of weird. Like we like to talk about like conspiracy theories and politics and everything that you shouldn't talk about. Right. But I love that. I thrive on that. Like that's a great day to me. That's something that makes me feel connected and not lonely. Okay. And Savannah, if she's listening to Savannah, we're going to do an episode on the Clutter Chronicles with Savannah too. But one of the things that I did in that first year postpartum was schedule days. Savannah needed help decluttering her home. So I was like, well, I'm doing this blog and I feel connected to people when I get to help them. Let me come over. We'll let the kids play and I'll help you purge your house. Right. And so those are the things that fill me up. And it's really important to get to know yourself and understand what fills you up so that you're not wasting your time, going out to the museum with a mom group of 20 people just because you feel like you need to do it. And maybe that's something that doesn't fill you up at all. It's going to leave you more drained, right? Like you don't need to waste your time doing these things that exhaust you, right? Or volunteering like for the PTA, if that's going to exhaust you. Like if you don't want to be a part of the PTA and that doesn't light you up, then don't do it. But it's really important to know these little things to make it so that you can have the most impact with your time. Okay. Not wasting your time, not doing things just to do things, not getting out of the house just to get out of the house. Like I know a lot of times people say that, and especially as moms, like their go-to downtime is to go walk around Target alone. That does nothing for me. I have to be completely honest. That doesn't excite me. That doesn't make me feel good. That doesn't make me feel relaxed. I know for so many moms it does, but that doesn't do anything for me. Like that won't be how I spend my time. And I'm not going to say that I've never spent my time with that like that, because when I first became a mom and I would be complaining to my husband being like, I feel lonely. I never get time to myself. I never get to do anything fun, blah, blah, blah. He was like, I'll keep the kids. You go walk around the mall. And I would appreciate the gesture, but I would come home not feeling any better, not feeling like, I was still feeling disconnected. I wasn't feeling connected. So I still felt lonely. And so it was a waste of 2 hours for me when I could have been like, yo, Savannah, let me come declutter your house with you while the kids play and we drink coffee and talk about weird things, right? So know what fills you up so that you know how to spend your time finding those connections. Because like I said at the beginning, loneliness is just a disconnection from yourself and the people around you. Okay, so we know your season. We know what fills you up. Now, the next thing that I want to talk to you about is getting out of your own head and into the world. Okay, so I think a lot of times, and this is something that I've had to learn how to navigate being, moving across the country. Hey, Leah was on Instagram. Now she's on Facebook. That's funny. But one of the things that I had to learn moving from Alaska to Florida, making new friends and being the new girl, is to get out of my own head on so many things about other people and the attention or time that they do or don't give to me. Okay. So here's one thing. Just one quick note about people in general is that people are too busy to ignore you on purpose. Okay. Right? Like if you're a mom, you get it. You're busy. You have a lot going on. It's not that you're ignoring them. It's not that you don't want to go on that play date. It's not that you don't want to hang out with them. It's not that you don't care about them, but you people aren't ignoring you. Okay. And if they are ignoring you, if they are being that mean, if they are being that rude, then forget them and disconnect them from your life forever, because that's not the kind of people that you need to be surrounded by with anyway. But the truth is that people are busy. They're not ignoring you on purpose. They probably don't know that you are feeling so lonely and isolated. Honestly, they're probably feeling the exact same way, right? They just don't know. They don't know that you're feeling lonely. They don't know that they feel like you're not paying attention to them, or you're offended that they don't invite you over or whatever. Like, they're just also busy living their life, trying to raise kids and trying to survive. Or maybe they're in a different season than you. Okay. And that's okay too. Like, sometimes you have friends that have kids before or after you, or don't have kids at all, and you're just in seasons of life that are very different, and your time to connect just doesn't happen as much as it used to, or like it used to. And that's okay too. There's literally billions of people in the world. Like, it's okay. You can find other people, and don't feel badly about it. Like, it's kind of, I know it sounds cruel because they are people, but it's kind of like your clutter. Like, some things and some relationships just aren't meant to be kept forever. That's okay. But also get out of your own head with all of the things that you think other people think about you. Okay. So going back to what I told you guys, if you saw the post in the Facebook group about the podcast intro that I recorded today, I felt so awkward, so uncomfortable recording it. I don't know why. Probably because I'm pushing myself outside of my comfort zone, because I've never had one before. And once you have a podcast intro, you know, you're official and whatever. But in my own head, I'm like, oh my God, people are going to think it's weird. People are going to think it sucks. People are going to know that I don't have the best technology, blah, blah, blah. But it also goes, that same thing is also true when you go out and meet people and when you're making friends. Like, you might feel awkward. You might feel clunky. You might feel like you're the weird one, or they think you're awkward or whatever. And totally honest, just like people are too busy to ignore you on purpose, people are too wrapped up in their own thoughts about themselves to notice if you are awkward or not. They don't care, okay? And just to let you guys know that I've dealt with this. A few weeks ago, I met one of my son's parents, and it happened to be in a moment where I was particularly frazzled and frantic because we were at the trampoline park, and my toddler got run over by some random stranger kid, and she was crying, and I was having issues with my technology I was in the middle of a challenge with you guys, and it wasn't working. And then my husband was having issues with some stuff that he needed from home, and I wasn't home, and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, I just came on really strong to her, very intense, which is so not me. And I know she was kind of like, wow, that is a high-strung mom. And I left the situation feeling totally awkward about it, and then saw her again, and it was like she didn't even notice it at all. And it was just me in my own head being like, wow, she thinks I'm weird, high-strung, stress ball, freak, right? And she probably didn't notice because she's so wrapped up in her own life. And if you are experiencing those people who are like, oh my God, they are talking crap about you, and they are like, oh my God, that's an awkward mom, like, don't hang out with her. That's not the type of mom that you need to be friends with anyway, because she's going to make you feel lonely, because she's going to be rude and whatever too. So you don't need to be friends with somebody like that anyway. But now we're off on a tangent. But those are kind of superficial reasons, but also get out of your own head with thinking that people are going to judge you or not want to be friends with you or think you're weird because you live in a certain type of house, or you send your kids to a certain type of school, or your kids are so many years apart, or you had your kids when you were this old, you know, whether that was 16 or whether that was 39, right? Like, get out of your own head. Those, like, people just don't care about that like you do. You're the only one that cares about that. That's you projecting your own judgment of yourself onto these people around you when they really, truly just don't care. And like I said, if they are the type to care, if they are the type to judge you for that, then that's not the type of person that you want to hang out with anyway, because that's going to be a lonely and isolating and cruel friendship anyway. Okay. Kayla says, I feel that so much. Me and my boyfriend are 16 years apart. When we go to his daughter's soccer games, I feel completely awkward and like they're talking about me. It's gotten better, but I still feel this way from time to time. Yeah. And you know what? There's always going to be those people who talk. Who cares? Those aren't the people you want to be friends with anyway. I have made friends, and I was always in that kind of awkward situation where I had my kids very young. And my stepson, like I said, there's a 6-year difference between me and my husband, and he had his son before he met me. And so if anybody sits and thinks about like the math on, you know, the age of my stepson, you know, they could make a weird conversation, but I don't invite that because it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't affect my life. I'm very happy with our relationship. So if anybody wants to worry about numbers and how far apart we are, like, who cares? Like, that's their own deal, not my deal. And if that's what you want to spend your time focusing on, then we're probably not going to have a whole lot to talk about anyway, right? Because I don't want to sit and talk about that. It doesn't matter to me. So anyway, I've been the young mom. I am still the young mom because as I get older and my kids get older, you know, that's still there. Like I have a fifth grader, sorry. I have a fifth grader and I'm 29, and, you know, most of the other parents are a lot older than me, and that's okay. I'm still friends with them. Like, I have had a best friend who she's almost 70. One of my really good friends in Idaho has kids the same age as I do. She's almost 50. And I have friends now who are younger than me and have kids the same age as Kaylee. So to me, it's like, it's easy for me now. It wasn't easy for me back then, but get out of your own head about those things. Like, if you have common ground, Savannah, I was just talking about you. But get out of your own head about it. If you have common ground with somebody, if you have kids the same ages, if you're in the same season of life as somebody, who cares what the age is, right? Like, who cares what the age difference is? If there's an age difference between you and your husband, obviously you guys are happy. So who cares, right? Who cares? Get out of your own head and into your own life. Okay. Now, the next thing that I want to talk to you about is leaning into the right people and cutting out obligations to the ones that drain you. Okay. So hang on. I need to drink a coffee real quick. Oh, and Savannah, by the way, everything I said about you was good. It was about how we would get together for coffee days and talk about the weirdest things. So learning how to lean in to the right people. So I told you guys, it was like a week ago, and it had been like a few weeks leading up to that where I was feeling a lot of things. Where am I going with this? Oh, I was feeling lonely. I was feeling disconnected. And it's because I was leaning into the wrong people and things. Okay. I started getting super consumed by social media. I started getting consumed by other people's drama and their stories. And I was feeling things like disconnection. Like I said at the beginning, loneliness is disconnection from the people who you really want to be connected to the most. I was feeling disconnected from my kids, and I was feeling disconnected from my husband. So then I started leaning into other people in the wrong ways. I started leaning into my friends and their really dramatic stories. I started leaning into getting into conversations on social media surrounding very negative and polarizing news stories. Okay. And just things that didn't matter. And the thing about engaging in those kinds of things, it just makes you feel more lonely, and it makes you feel more disconnected from the people who matter most to you, because you're letting all of your energy, mental, physical, and otherwise, be consumed by all of these other things that don't matter. So I saw this quote the other day that that I really loved, and it was something along the lines of like, the best parts of my life don't make it to social media. So I'm going to combine these next 2 points of social media and leaning into the right people. But the best parts of my life don't make it to social media. And that's something that I have really been trying to practice lately. Not because I don't like social media, and not because I don't want to share things with people on social media, but I want to reserve those really special things and those fun times, even those hard times, for the people in my life that I want to be most connected to. If I'm giving all of my connection to social media and people on the internet, I don't have much else to give to the people in my life. So what I did was I took a social media break. I took a break from creating. I had some good conversations with my husband about, hey, I'm feeling kind of lonely, and because we've had a lot of kids together and we've been together for a long time, I'm like, I recognize this season that we're in. This is what I need. Like, I need you to come home. and this is where my love languages get really high maintenance, but like, I need you to come home, and I need you to just pay attention to me. Like, obviously before the kids go to bed, like that can't happen. But I'm like, once the kids go to bed, like, I want it to be the James and Krista show. Like, let's just talk. Let's just hang out. Let's do whatever we want to do. Like, I need that conversation with you. I need to be able to rehash my day. I need to be able to like have all of your attention, basically. I'm an attention whore. Okay. And we can laugh about it now. And then I need help. Like, I'm like, I'm starting to feel again, like I'm the nagging mom who's the one that's always like, do your laundry, pick up the toys, put your dishes away, blah, blah, blah. Like, I just need you to step up a little bit and help me in that way. And those are the things that make me feel connected, right? Make me feel connected to him. Okay. A big part of, honestly, usually why I feel lonely is because him and I are having a disconnect, or my kids and I are having a disconnect. It's not that I don't get to go out and have a girls' night every weekend. It's not that I didn't get to go to a painting and wine night. That's not why I feel disconnected. It's because I feel disconnected from the people who matter most to me. I always joke and say I'm like Tinkerbell. I need attention or I'll die. Yeah, exactly. The quality time love languagers, you feel me on that. Like, pay attention to me or I'm going to die. Maybe not literally, but my soul is dying. Okay. So lean into the right people. Share those parts of your life with the people who matter most to you. Another thing that I've been really trying to work on is doing that with like my extended family, my sister-in-laws, with my kids and their cousins, my parents, my parents-in-law, and just trying to reserve, the cute pictures that I take of the kids, not for Facebook and social media, but for them, and like sending a direct message to them so I can feel connected to those people. Okay. And like I said, social media, let's talk a little bit about that because these two kind of go together, but social media is a double-edged sword. Like I said, a really big part of why I started this entire community in the first place was so that I didn't feel lonely, so that I had connection to other people. But it can be a negative thing too, because then you end up sharing everything with everybody all of the time. And that can be pretty draining. It can also make your life feel kind of shallow and disconnected because you're sharing all of these really special parts of your life with social media, and you're getting a little heart or you're getting a comment for a second, and then it's like crack for your loneliness. It makes you feel good for just a second, and then it goes away and you're like, where did everybody go? Right? Like, social media, it's a double-edged sword. I don't really know how else to say it other than it's a blessing. But, too much of anything is never a good thing. So if you're only sharing those really big moments and important parts of your life on social media and not with people in your real life, if you're only taking pictures of those moments with your kids instead of actually being in those moments with your kids, if you're only sharing all of those things to get a like or a comment, then, okay, bye, Kayla. Then maybe try and take a step back and start sharing or reserving those moments for the people in your real life, or not even capturing those moments on the camera and just being in those moments. Okay. So the other part of social media, which I think everybody already knows, is that it makes you feel like everybody else is doing something so much cooler than you, or being with so many other people more than you, or not feeling lonely like you. And it just makes you feel isolated because you're falling into this trap of like comparing your life to everybody else's life. And you're just like, what the heck? Why are they always having the best time? And the truth probably is that they're not, right? Okay. Maybe they are. I'm not going to say that they're not, because maybe they are. But okay, last tip, because I know this episode is getting really long. So thanks for hanging with me, guys. But the last thing that you kind of have to do when you're feeling lonely, when you're feeling disconnected, is to be the friend and to be the connection with other people. Okay. To be the friend. Initiate get-togethers, initiate meetups, initiate coffee dates, initiate conversations. Okay. And it can be anything from a text message to a phone call to a FaceTime to whatever. Like initiate. And if Caitlin is still on here, she does this, guys. So if you live near Caitlin, go to Caitlin's house, because she's getting a bounce house, I think, on Sunday or something. But be specific in your invitations. Okay. Don't be like, hey, do you want to get together sometime? Because, then that's going to be 8 years later. And that's a waste. But be like, hey, on Sunday at this time, I'm doing this. I would love for you to be here with me. And invite them. Okay. Initiate. You have to be the friend, because just like we talked about earlier, where people are like, they're too busy to ignore you. First of all, they don't care about how awkward you feel because they're too focused on how awkward they feel. Like they're just wondering what's in it for me. And I know this is so selfish, but it's just how people are. They want to know what's in it for me. So you have to invite them. You have to make the first move. You have to say, this is what I want to do with you. Do you want to come do it with me? Maybe they say yes. Maybe they say no. Maybe they cancel on you. Maybe they reschedule. But you just have to show up for people, honestly. Like if you're just going to sit around and wait for people to show up for you, it's not going to happen unless they listen to this episode and then they're like, I should show up for Danielle, right? Anybody listening to this episode, show up for Danielle. But people will match you. They'll match you where you're at. Okay. They'll match you. They'll match your energy. They'll match your effort. They'll match your intention. They will rise to whatever you're putting out. Okay. So if you're putting out, and this might sound a little bit harsh, but if you're putting out like whiny vibes of like, I don't have any friends, nobody ever hangs out with me, I'm so lonely, then people are going to treat you like you have no friends and nobody ever wants to hang out with you and you're so lonely. But if you put out the vibe of like I was talking about with Savannah, where I was like, okay, like I want to hang out with Savannah. I like Savannah. We have kids the same age. We both like coffee. Hey, Savannah, can I come over to your house and help you declutter? Like that was a way for us to connect. That was my way to alleviate my loneliness. And hopefully Savannah liked it too, right? Like, but people will match whatever you're putting out to them. So make sure that whatever it is that you're putting out, whatever you're initiating, is what you want to get back. Okay. Woo, that was a long episode. I feel like I've been talking forever. How long has it been? Like 8 hours? It doesn't tell me. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. So that's it for the episode. This episode, and I'm going to go back and add it to all of the episodes, is going to have the new intro for the podcast. I would love it if you let me know what you thought about it. Be honest. Whatever you have to say isn't going to hurt my feelings. And if you like the podcast, Jessica, if you're still watching, I'll take a screenshot of the podcast app that I have. I have an iPhone, so I'll show you that one, but then I'll also show you, if you don't have an iPhone, what apps to use, which ones I think are the easiest to use. So thanks for being here, guys. I'm also going to put an outro. So when you get to the end of the episode, listen to the outro too. I hope that it's received well, because I thought it was funny, but maybe other people won't think it's funny. So anyways, guys, I will see you tomorrow. Bye.